In this video, I'm showing you a single technique that works to control the angle your characters are viewed from, lets you make subtle adjustments to their expression, as well as define their hand, arm, and leg positions, along with really every aspect of your character to create any pose. And even better, this technique has nothing to do with memorizing keywords or getting better at prompt writing. I'm sure you've experienced this problem, right? Midjourney doesn't listen to words that are trying to control the angle your character is viewed from. If you write a prompt like candid side angle of a smiling blonde woman wearing a pink sweater, most of the time you get this. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get something more like this, but she's still basically facing forward, she just tilted her head a bit. What of course you wanted was an image like this, and Midjourney just doesn't seem to get there with a simple prompt. But I was able to create this image, and the way I did it is going to sound a little crazy. Before I generated her, I first asked Midjourney to generate a close-up photo of a blonde woman's ear. And then I used the editor on the website to zoom out and create the image. The reason this works is because what Midjourney needed was a pattern interrupt, right? Because the reason we see so many images like this is because Midjourney gets locked into its usual way of doing things that came from the way it was trained. Lots of people voted for the best looking images, and most of them look like this. It's why you tend to get that simple, straightforward, bored expression. And rather than teaching you how to write a huge, complex prompt to try and fight that, we can instead take advantage of its usual way to generate images by finding the usual way to generate an image with a more unusual focus. In this case, that means we begin with an ear. To generalize a bit, to help this make sense, in order to control the angle an image is taken from, it's better to choose a focus that is already often viewed from the angle we wanted. We can focus on a ponytail if we want to see the back of someone's head. We can use a receding hairline to see someone from straight above. You can focus on the back pocket of a pair of jeans if you want to. Though I wouldn't recommend looking up someone's nostril. I mean, it's an angle that works, but I just wouldn't recommend it. The point is, we can generate any of these things using extremely simple prompts and get very unusual angles to be seeing a person from. And then starting from there, once we have the angle well defined, we can simply zoom out and make our chosen feature less prominent by changing our prompt to something else. And so, in the new image, the angle we wanted is extremely well defined, not by tons of keywords, but by the part of the image we already generated. With this in mind, the method for getting a more realistic expression suddenly makes a lot of sense. When Midjourney generates a portrait, it tends to dumb down expressions to make it look better. But if we start with a photo of just a smile, or just closed eyes, or just a mischievous smirk, Midjourney will spend all of its effort to create a high-quality, close-up version of the exact expression we wanted that now, in just one more generation, we can apply it to our character by simply zooming out. I will say there is something to watch out for when you're doing this, especially for photorealistic images. Midjourney loves to make close-up images with an extremely high depth of field. For this angle technique and for this expression technique, we'll often see an intense blur right on the edges of our images. So if you take that entire generation and simply zoom out, that blur will often propagate into the rest of the image for your final result. But there is an easy solution to this. On the alpha site, in the editor, what you're able to do is simultaneously adjust the scale, like I was showing you, but also erase out any of that blurring that you need to. You can also take this time to remove any background elements that don't align with the end result you have in mind, which saves you from the problem of ending up with totally blurred images or a photo where the focus is notably and weirdly on the person's ear, because that's not what we're going for. But what's really cool, and I'm sure the reason you're still watching, is that you can actually use a variation of this technique to create poses too, and it's a natural extension of what we've just been talking about. With very simple prompts, you can generate somebody's hands making a particular gesture. Maybe they're pointing or clutching the top of their head, or maybe you want someone's feet as they're jumping towards the water. And yet again, those close-up features indicate an entire pose and let us direct Midjourney into following through and creating exactly what we want. And this is really cool, but if you start using this a lot, you'll end up with a new problem. For example, you go ahead and generate a finger pointing, and then if you zoom out to try to create your whole character, suddenly you realize Midjourney lost the thread and created your character with little tiny doll hands, instead of something realistic to their proportions. Truthfully, that's fine, and we have a relatively easy way around it. What I want you to remember is that the whole point of this was a pattern interrupt from the classic Midjourney poses that we're trying to avoid. So even if your results are super wonky like this is, it's not really a problem, because by putting this in your image while you were generating, you successfully interrupted the pattern away from Midjourney's basic poses. There's no reason now to even keep a single pixel from the image you started with. Even though she's got little tiny hands, the pointing finger from the original image has done its job and convinced Midjourney to generate a lady who's holding herself like she's pointing her finger exactly the direction we wanted it to be pointing. There's nothing stopping us now from erasing the entire problem area and clicking submit. And suddenly, we get this awesome effect where we have our character pointing, but it's a little blurred as it gets close to the camera. And we never would have gotten anything like that with a one-shot, single prompt approach. And you'll see this as a common theme as you try to do this yourself. This method is a stepping stone towards your final image, and it really isn't a problem at all if you later have to erase the entire thing. What I think is amazing about this method is that it lets you stack ideas and create some truly complex concepts in cool ways. Maybe you want a man kneeling, holding some gold in his outstretched hands, and offering it to an unseen dragon who is casting an ominous shadow on the wall behind him. An image like this is just about impossible to create with a single prompt, right? Here, I can type that out as a prompt and just look at the image we get when we trust Midjourney to figure it out. I did this like 8 times, and the best I got I'd describe more as a squatting man holding cornflakes near a bright orange light, with admittedly a pretty good shadow of a dragon behind him, but most of them were more like this. Which is why I am so happy to have this process where I can start on a smaller part of the image that helps define the pose of my character, right? I can generate some hands holding some gold outstretched into the distance, and then zoom my way out. And even though these 4 images are nonsense, I can erase some more until Midjourney understands that this should be a kneeling character. Until finally, after several trial and errors, I land on an image that I was imagining with my pose being extremely well defined and something Midjourney never would have made for me otherwise. Doing this requires thinking about AI art in terms of generating several layers of an image that each guide Midjourney a little closer to the result you were after. I truly think this method gives you an incredible amount of freedom to create just about any pose you want, but I'm curious, if you guys try this out and have trouble with a specific pose, I'd love to hear what it is in the comments, because maybe we can tackle it together in a future video. Anyway, if you found this cool, but lingering in your mind right now is a question of how to do these things and create consistent characters at the same time, well, do I have the video for you. In this one, I'll show you how to turn images like the ones we've been creating and making them templates to put one or more of your consistent characters into. I think you'll have a ton of fun with this stuff. Give it a try, and I'll see you in the next one.